Hello and welcome back to our live Fuel Arts online webinar Art Tech series. I'm Denis Belkevich, the co-founder of Fuel Arts, and with me is Sonia Stubblebine, project manager of Fuel Arts. So we're about to start. First of all, I'd like to say that finally we are releasing our long-awaited Fuel Arts Startups report, which will be published next week. So we're welcoming you to visit our special dedicated webinar next Tuesday. It will be devoted to this report. You'll find all the info on our social networks, so please feel free to subscribe. Yeah, that's how it looks like. I mean, at least the cover and 80 pages inside. Yeah, the most powerful report since we launched this initiative. So as you know, our Spring 2023 webinars are focused on the diversity of the Tezos ecosystem. And these webinars introduce you to the managers, curators, founders, artists, and technical experts working to develop the #1 blockchain for the arts, which is Tezos. At the same weeks, we're continuing working with the startups of the first batch of the Fuel Arts and Tezos Accelerator. You can see the 10 startups we're working with, and this extensive work will result in a demo day on the 27th of April. So everyone is welcome to subscribe and receive a personal invitation to visit this outstanding event. Great honor, not the responsibility, but honor to name the partners of the Fuel Arts and Tezos Accelerator, namely Amadeo Global, a New York-based investment firm focused on public and private companies. Unstoppable Domains, our infrastructural partner of the batch, the Web3 domain provider, which offers NFT domains that give people full ownership and control on their digital identity. Educate Me, a Ukrainian platform that gathers live sessions, lessons, content in a single place. Please subscribe and use. Then our technical partners, Nomadic Labs, tech partner of the batch, one of the largest research and development centers within the Tezos ecosystem, and the founder of Nomadic Labs was our last week's guest. Please, you're welcome to visit our YouTube channel and watch this webinar in case you have missed it. Right at the bottom, the next partner, tech partner of Fuel Arts from Germany. They are successfully developing the most ambitious and scalable projects. Tezos Art Management, a team of producers and strategists which are managing international art projects and delivering PR services. One of our media partners, Metaverse Post, they supply the market with the hottest Web3 news. Again, subscribe and stay tuned. Then the last four companies are represented by the mentors of Fuel Arts and Tezos Accelerator. 23, Blockchain Art, a trustworthy network for the art world, where you can discover, buy, and sell digital artworks online. Bull Perks, a decentralized VC and multi-chain launchpad focused on gamify. Artcryption, platform to sell, protect, and share creative assets and IP online. And ArtPay from France that provides elegant financial and technology tools for the global art market. So let's get back to our today's topic and today's guest. The Tezos ecosystem is very large, and while discovering it, you'll for sure notice that it covers all of the world. For instance, we'd like to speak today about the Tezos India Arts and Culture initiative that was created back in 2022 to get artists, galleries, and festivals in India to use, curate, and build on the Tezos ecosystem. That's why we invited today the lead of Tezos India Arts and Culture, Varun Desai. Hello, Varun.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. We're very excited to get to know more about Tezos India Arts and Culture. And yeah, let's start today. We have many questions, and I'm sure we're going to have many questions from the audience as well.
Yeah, please let me give a small intro towards Varun. So you are a computer engineer and also a multidisciplinary artist and musician, as we can see from your background.
Yes.
You have over 17 years of experience working in arts and culture as a producer, label manager, and designer. And you're also a teacher and lecturer on both hardware and software platforms, and an early user of blockchain, which is essential. And also, you're an artist on Tezos.
Yes.
Good. So the official part is over. Let's proceed to our questions. And the first question, well, why have Tezos India decided to launch a vertical to empower arts and culture?
Well, thank you, Dennis, for that introduction as well. Before I actually get to why they decided to do the launch, I'd like to talk about what it is that Tezos India Arts and Culture does.
Sure.
Within a blockchain ecosystem, there are several things that you can do. And out of those two things, you could divide it into development and then the user base. And within the Tezos ecosystem, it became very apparent in early 2021 that the main use case of the blockchain was artists using it for buying and selling their work. And this is something that I discovered just like everyone else that summer as a curious artist online, stumbling upon it and just using the system, using the blockchain as an artist. Whereas I'd been a very skeptical person when it came to the blockchain and crypto and that side of investing. The technology as an artist was very exciting. So this is something that I personally got involved in for a year until I met the good people at Tezos India. And at that point of time, Tezos India was started in 2019, and we met officially in 2022. And when we met, the main the 3 years before that, the primary work being done by the organization had been the development of smart contracts, the teaching of the coding, the entire work that goes into building blockchain and building the apps and building things that um, building things that make what the make the ecosystem. But there was not much of a use case, meaning there weren't any artists who were actually buying and selling NFTs, and there was a massive a very apparent gap of people within Tezos India that knew what was really going on with the arts and culture. And at that point, it's fair because there is a big gap when you learn how to code and you're coming from an engineering background and you look at the blockchain, you look at Tezos, it looks very different from what it looks like to an artist. So that point, when we met, we had a very interesting discussion because being an engineer and being an artist, I could have a dual discussion with the team. And perhaps it was that allowed me to give certain insights about how these two worlds are very different and how they need to come together. And at that point of time, Tezos India had also been doing a lot of activities within the arts and culture circuit. And I met them at India Art Fair, which is a major art exhibition, you could call it. It's a festival, a fair, all of these things put into one. And through these discussions about what was needed came I wouldn't even say idea, came the beginnings of Tezos India Arts and Culture. I feel the idea was already there because you have amazing organizations like TZ APAC that have been doing so much work in the arts and culture sector. So it was at that point of time we felt that it would be more robust if Tezos India had both the development wing as well as the artists and the use case wing, where people actually doing a lot more work with not necessarily NFTs, but the use of the blockchain as artists, which can be used in many other ways. Most people see it as just NFTs, but there's a lot more that can be done that might integrate NFTs in a more subset. So yeah, to really answer a very simple question in a long way, it was launched to ensure that we were working as an entity on both sides of things, on development as well as use case.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also, you just explained like how it was born. Could you explain shortly what is the mission and vision for actually India Arts and Culture?
Yes. So when this was created, the goals obviously had to be set. So in the first few months of formalizing things, we decided to create goals. One of the primary goals, of course, is to teach more artists about the Tezos blockchain and how to use it and how to harness that for their artistic careers. But the other things we also noticed that we could do is introduce the ecosystem to bigger organizations like art collectives, like galleries and festivals. So India Art Fair is where we met, and India Art Fair is actually where we returned to a year later to do one of the biggest projects that we have done, which I can get to in a bit. So it came full circle within a span of a year, meeting there and then coming back to that festival. But the mission is very varied, and I feel it's going to change from year to year. Whatever the community needs at a certain point of time, we're going to fill in that gap and do it. If there's certain roadmaps that we need to achieve, we're going to do that and then move on to other things. So I can definitely talk about its goals in the short term as well as the long term, as I explained further.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Varun. I mean, we'll for sure ask you about both short terms and long terms. Let's start with the shortest terms. Like, what projects are you currently working on in Tezos India Arts and Culture?
Yeah, so the next few months are quite exciting. We just came out of a big project and we're going into a few more. So some of them need to be officiated, but I can talk about them, of course, in a not so specific way. One thing we're working on is there's an NFT gallery that we're going to set up for over a weekend at an artificial intelligence festival that's centered around climate change. So it's an interesting festival that is on the theme of artificial intelligence and climate change. And we're trying to figure out how we can set up a gallery and curate art that touches on both of these subjects. So that's something that's going to happen in the month of March itself. Something that we want to do in the coming months, which we've been planning for a little while, is also an artist residency. So now that we're almost a year in, we have been seeing which Indian artists have been active in the ecosystem, what kind of work people are doing, and from that, getting a better understanding of what kind of collaborations can happen. Sometimes collaborations are not so easy to do online, even if it's digital artists working together. So we felt that once a year, we'd like to do something like a physical residency where we just get artists together, artists from the ecosystem together, get them to work on projects together, take them to a place that's free from a lot of distractions so they can really focus on the artistic process. So from this idea came the idea of a Tezos India Art Residency, which we're working on implementing this summer, where we're going to bring a group of artists. And that should be pretty exciting because we also want to tell stories through this process, introduce the world to these artists, show people how collaboration's done, show people how physical collaborations can end up with a very interesting digital project on the blockchain. And in that way, also teach people how they can take their ideas further. So that's something that's going to happen this summer. We're also planning more exhibitions. We want to do a month-long exhibition on generative art. Being a creative coder myself, I'm very invested in developing generative art in India and giving opportunities to create other creative coders through blockchain technology to form communities and to really make themselves visible, because India has always has had this long-standing relationship with technology and engineers and tech people, but we have not so um, we do have a lot of amazing art schools and design schools, but the merging of engineering and design has not really been accelerated as much as it has been in Europe. So through this technology, we also want to try and empower artists to understand generative art. We want to empower people who know coding to understand art a little bit more, and bring more of these people into the blockchain, because um, as we know, the blockchain has been one of the greatest gifts to generative artists who work with code, to be able to take an algorithm and split it up into so many different variations, and then having collectors collect each one of those. If you think about that in terms of the standard art world, it wasn't really possible unless you like really printed out a whole bunch of things and gave them out. Here you have the ability of people collecting from a single algorithm. So I feel that is a very powerful tool that should be in the hands of every generative artist to allow them to make their work more visible. Because I myself saw how I struggled to get people to see my work, because it's very hard to convey code. You have to render them down to frames and make them look like a video, or make them look like an image. But at the end of the day, you're really working with code. So even Tezos, the reason I actually got onto Hikitnunk back in the day is because it was the only place that an artist could mint a piece of code as as an NFT, and that's instantly what attracted me. So I want to we want to show this to other artists and show people how easy it is to put up a p5.js script, or a 3.js script, and just create their own NFT that's also interactive or like an application. So this month-long exhibition stands as a project to just show that we're serious about bringing generative artists together, that we're here to help people out and teach them not just how to use the Tezos blockchain, but also give them their first steps into creative coding and encourage that further.
We also
The
wanted to ask you about Indian Art Fair, because you mentioned it today already a couple of times. Could you share us, the story behind and what you're planning to do at India Art Fair?
So we were at India Art Fair a few weeks ago. It was from the 9th to 12th of February, actually. And this was the big return to India Art Fair a year later. And it was a very, very big project, I would say, because we were doing two major things. One of them was introducing the Indian art community, which is about 25,000 people that come to India Art Fair. So it is our version of, you could say, the art basels that happen in other cities. We were introducing them to generative art through a live installation that had the entire timeline of generative art from the 1950s all the way to the 2020s. So we did not come in a sense of a brand with logos and things like that, which was a little bit the approach the previous year. So this year we approached it as an art installation rather than a branded booth. So the first thing people saw was this historical timeline. So the premise, the moment they saw things, is like, okay, we're not trying to sell anyone anything. We're trying to educate and impart knowledge, which is one of the core ideologies of Tezos India Arts and Culture. Uh, the first thing that we do. So educate people on the history of generative art all the way to the 2020s, and through that education, we talked about how the blockchain has come in the last decade. And from there, we had 4 kiosks Um, these were designed by us and created by architects, and they were meant to mimic um, um, these pixelated kind of structures, monoliths that were slightly bent over, almost like looking down at the people, and the people look up at it almost like a being. And they had these 55-inch screens that were embedded in them. And we had four generative artists from India that we curated, who are pioneering the genre from here. And we had their algorithm cycling through each one. So it was an amazing moment watching everyone from little kids to college students to older people just walk up to these things without any info other than that history that we'd given to people at the back, and then see what generative art could be, how it's presented in the modern day. And in a very subtle way, we also had um, our QR codes as well there. So while there were no apparent logos and branding, you could scan a QR code, and that's actually where the magic, another part of the magic, happened. And this is where Tezos India and organizations like Tezos come in, because they had built an entire back end for us for India Art Fair, which is as you scan the QR, you go into this landing page, which tells you about all the artists and the art that we had on there. And we had a very simple system where you could just enter your email address and claim one of these editions from these four artists. And it, learning from the previous experiences, we didn't make it too complicated. We kept things very simple. So all people had to do was enter their email. They didn't have to open a wallet right then and there, or like jump into Web3 immediately. And if they did that, they got an email which gave them all the steps. So they could go back from the fair and claim it, uh, or they could even do it right there. So we gave people both the options. And this system was built by all the amazing developers at Tezos India and Tejo. So it was a coming together of the developers, the tech, the generative artists, um, architecture, history. So it really was the results of 1 year of conceptualizing why Tezos India Arts and Culture is important, what it stands for, and what kind of projects it can actually implement at what scale. So it stood as an example of everything that we could do at the most exposed art exhibition in the country at the time. So given that we had over 1,000 people collect the work, we had many thousands of people see the work. We see this as quite a big step into introducing not just generative art, but uh, art on the blockchain to the masses in India.
Absolutely. That sounds
Great.
incredible. Also,
Sounds amazing. Sonia?
yeah, sorry, Dennis, we had miscommunication because of the distance. Actually, I wanted to ask you, you just described it in such a beautiful way. I'm also very curious, what was the reaction of the audience? What do you think, how engaged they were? What kind of, reactions have you heard towards that exhibition?
Well, one thing we kept in mind going into India Art Fair in 2023, because it is very different from 2022. The mood uh, about crypto has changed. In 2022, it was very exciting, very positive. Everyone was very curious. But in 2023, the mood had changed to skepticism, a lot of disappointment because of how the previous year has gone. So this is something that we constantly have to fight against. Like, for us as artists, it doesn't really change what the crypto markets are doing. We are using the blockchain to do what we do best, to be artists. But when you look at the overall ecosystem, if uh, the crypto markets have crashed, the general mood definitely has changed. So we knew this going in, that the mood would be very different. It's not the year to celebrate NFTs in a major way, and like it was in the previous year, because of the markets were like, everyone is very open about their um celebration, because people had made a lot of success on the blockchain. But here we come in in a very skeptical mode. So um, all that being said, I still think we had a good reaction. We just did not move our conversations into talking about markets and NFTs and that whole um, there's a sense of fake positivity that comes from um, when you have to talk about the markets. It's always believe, 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 we are going to make it, and all of those things. And I feel as an artist, a lot of that stuff is quite redundant. As long as we talk about the technology and how to use things will work out in the long run, of course. But we're not here to be market speculators. We're not here to give financial advice to people, even though some of them really want it. Because we're working in an ecosystem, they're like, oh, should we buy Tezos? I'm like, no, that's not what we're trying to encourage. We're trying to encourage the use of the blockchain. We are not looking at any of this as an investment vehicle, even the art. If you're a collector and you like someone's art, support them and buy it. So we're not portraying all of this Tezos art as an investment. We're definitely not portraying Tezos as an ecosystem to invest in. I'm sure there are other people whose job it is to do that, but it's not our job to do that. Our job is to teach artists how to use the blockchain. And I feel no matter where the market is, we'll still be doing that job. Again, that being said, the general mood about NFTs has definitely dropped in the entire art ecosystem. That's something that we have to come to terms with. People are very skeptical, but they were super happy to see that we were talking about generative art, because that is not something connected to the crypto world at all. Generative art is talking about technologists in art, and it's a growing discussion because AI was the hot topic this year. Like NFTs was the hot topic last year, it was AI this year. So a lot of our conversations was telling people that, hey, these guys are not just prompting the art, they're actually writing the code behind it. So a lot of our conversations were based on that. And through that, we talked about the blockchain and things like that. So it was a very organic, very non-hype kind of year for us to talk about things. But those that asked the right questions, I would say, were very happy to see the work we were doing. Those that asked the wrong questions about what is the state of NFTs, why has it gone down, they might not have been too excited about it, but we can't do much about that. That's just how it is.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Varun. I would propose to stay with the artists and with their, let's say, artistic practice in the next question. Like, how could artists, or how will artists benefit from Tezos India Arts and Culture?
Well, we hope we can reach as many artists and help them out. That's the main thing. And how they can benefit is the first thing they realize when they get in touch with us or they enter a workshop is that we're here to hold your hand and teach you how to use the blockchain without any limitations. So one of the first things we implemented in the first month of our Tezos India Arts and Culture was the Tezos India Fountain. And the fountain is a very simple thing. It's someone who wants, an artist that wants to get onto the ecosystem. We want to have zero barriers for them getting on. So all they have to do is create a Twitter account to validate themselves, to join the Tezos India Arts and Culture Discord. And once they're validated, we send them just the right amount of Tez to mint their first artwork. So like I was saying earlier, we're not talking about exchanges, we're not talking about markets or the crypto. We want artists to really start using things right at the get-go. So they have Tezos in their wallet, they can mint their NFTs right away. So there is no barrier like other chains might have, where you have to first spend some money, buy some tokens, learn how to use an exchange, transfer it to a hot wallet. All of these things that people who got into NFTs in early 2021, we had to do that. It was much harder before that. There was even less of that. But now you can have these systems where we can just get artists on board. And I'd love to see something start like that, where you start with 0.25 TES, which is what we send everyone. It's a very minuscule amount, but just about enough to get onto TIA and mint onto the TIA contract. It's not even enough to start your own collection on object. So it really forces people, and I like this personally myself, it forces people to use TIA.art. And that's how I learned as well. So we could teach people how to start straight on object, but we start people on the first NFT platform that existed. And then once they get used to that, we're like, okay, now you've minted your first work, you've made a couple of tears by selling that edition. Okay, now why don't you use that to create your first collection on object? And then help them step up. And then you never know where an artist might reach. We've personally seen so many artists start with nothing and then become some of the biggest art stars on the Tezos ecosystem. So that's one of the things we want to do. We want to see artists from India also reach these heights that people like, say, John or Zancan in the generative art world. We've seen the kind of success that they've been able to see. We want to see that for Indian art, South Asian artists and Indian artists as well. So we want to be able to help take any artist to that level. So answer any questions, give them the kind of support that they might need. We do Twitter Spaces. We have an Instagram account. We have a Twitter account. We share all the other artists' artwork. And then we have all these projects. We also want to help take artists from the Web3 space into the physical space. So we do that by all of these exhibitions that we're planning, whether it's India Art Fair or smaller weekend exhibitions or month-long exhibitions. It's all helping artists from the Tezos ecosystem to be visible in the real world, which is also a very, very important part of art practice today. You can't just be hidden online. You have to be visible in the real world.
Thank you. That's really a very thoughtful and great approach towards developing the art stage in
Absolutely.
India. Actually, my next question after Sonia asked her one would be about the current art stage of India. But yeah.
I was just thinking in the same direction, Dennis, and I was actually curious to ask Varun another question about like how big is right now community of artists who are using Tezos right now? If you can give us maybe not exact numbers, but just a general understanding. And what goals do you have? Do you have certain goals in the organization? How many artists you want to reach in the next year or two?
Well, we have our goals, and we have been keeping tabs of how many artists that there are on the ecosystem. There are a lot of artists that got onto Tezos a long time back in the early 2021, when platforms like Kalamint were very active in India. A lot of artists got on. So the question actually is not about how many artists get on; it's actually how active they really are going to be. Um, in It's surprising, like, I found this out after doing a lot of research. Most artists are already on the Tezos ecosystem at this point of time. If we have to bring artists who are not Web3 natives, that's a completely different demographic. But people who are Web3 natives, they have played around with Tezos. So there are very few people who haven't really been on the ecosystem. The thing is, a lot of them were there and then have moved on to different chains. A lot of them are still there but playing around with different chains. So when it comes to people who are already using the Web3 thing, we're not really too worried, and we don't promote too aggressively towards them because they know what's going on. They already tuned in. What we want to do is bring in people who have not been exposed to the blockchain and Web3 and introduce them to Web3 through the Tezos ecosystem, because it's one of the friendliest ways to get into the blockchain. There's the security is good, because you hear a lot of cases when you're using the hot wallet and you click on a bad link and then you lose everything. And you hear these stories happening in other chains. But in the Tezos ecosystem, it's fairly safe. Although you have to learn how to secure your key phrase and things like that. The general things that you have to learn, no matter which blockchain you're using. Uh, Also, the low barrier of entry, the fact that we can give people Tez to mint their first NFT, it's a great way of bringing artists who are not in the Web3 on board. So we feel that these are where we can see greater numbers. So in terms of artists from India who have been on Tezos, I would say the numbers are in the high hundreds, maybe um, over 500 artists, I would say, who have been in and out of the ecosystem. But when we look at active artists who are minting every week, then the number is less. So we are trying to increase that. We're trying to get artists to be more active while bringing in new artists into the ecosystem. So there's a big difference. We bring in a lot of artists, they mint one or two works, and then they kind of go silent. So it is something that a lot of people are trying to figure how to keep artists involved. And we are doing this through things like events. If you've come across any of the hashtag events that have been happening, where we give themes to artists, encourage them to mint more. So we did a bunch of these things where this is community driven activity. Actually, it wasn't in our game plan. It came as an idea from our Discord, where we had a festival in India called Navratri, which translates to 9 nights. So we created an event called 9 nights, and for each day we had a separate color. So we asked every artist to use that color and make a piece of art in that color, which is such a broad theme that all different artists participated. So, and then we got them to mint one work every day. So through activities like this, we are trying to increase the regular use of the ecosystem. And this I personally feel is more important at this juncture than trying to find artists that sell works for a lot, which is the other approach. Try to find really famous artists, get them to mint on the blockchain, and try to get them to sell their work. That time, I feel, will come somewhere in the future when the markets are a little bit more positive about NFTs in general. But at this point of time, in a market where people are not so trusting, it's a great time to build. And when developers say build, they're building apps. When artists say build, just work on more art, get more familiar, become more creative using the ecosystem, because there's so many different platforms that you can put your work out right now. So we also like to talk to them about the different possibilities. You could do a project on FX hash, you could do stuff on object, and there's so many different formats of media that you can put on object. You can do pixel art on 8pidu, you can write text on type.art. So one of the things we're also trying to do is bring as many artists who do different types of things, not just a certain type of thing, and get them to mint their work. So we had regional artists who wanted to write poetry in Bengali, put the first Bengali prose or poem up on the blockchain. These regional things that have not really happened on the blockchain in general. We're looking at being able to do this at this point of time. So it's pretty exciting, bringing folk artists onto the blockchain, connecting past and future in this way. So there are definitely a lot of interesting things that we're able to do in that sense.
Great. Thank you, Varun. I promise to get back to the Indian art market, because it's very interesting. In recent decades, we were witnessing the extensive improvements and development of the Indian art market.
Yes.
For instance, like according to our tactic recent report, public auction market sales in India reached in 2022 a 12-year high.
Yes.
Despite the challenges of the COVID pandemic, For instance, the cumulative sales, auction sales at the 4 top auction houses, like 2 domestic ones, Saffron Art and Asta Guru, as well as the Indian departments of Sotheby's and Christie's. So they saw a rise of 7%, a bit more than 7% in 2022,
Yes.
with the overall auction sales of 120 million. And Indian modern artists of the first part of the 20th century set new auction records. And we also know world-known international Indian art, international artists with Indian origin, like Sabat Gupta and Anish Kapoor and many others. And we shouldn't forget that the Google Art project, known as Google Art, Culture and Arts, was introduced and, let's say, founded by Amit Sood from India. And also the Beeple sale, the buyer of that 69 million Beeple sale is also a crypto collector from India known as Meta Kovan. So
Yes.
my question is regarding this outstanding statistics, what is still missing in today's Indian art market?
Well, the art market, I'd like to say, has a habit of marking off their statistics based on the highest sales, which is fair. That's how it's done. And in that terms, it has done tremendously well. The highest sales have happened this year, like you said, and I think the record, it's been like the highest sales if you take the months after that in the last 30 years, not just 9. It's staggering how much is sold this year. Of course, the modernists have always been selling, and they're the first ones to really go. What I would say about these sales is a lot of them are looked upon as investments. And in that sense, the art market is thriving, but there are still very few collectors. What we are trying to do is bring more people into the habit of collecting and break that stigma of the fact that you have to be super, super wealthy to buy a piece of art. And I think that is something where the Tezos ecosystem stands apart, because that's one of the first things I did. I sold my work, made a handful of Tez, and then I bought art on the Tezos blockchain. And very few blockchains allow you to do that. So in terms of the art market, we want to get people to understand that this is also collecting for the masses. So there's a little bit of a conflict of interest in that sense, because you have a lot of these art collectors who want to be super exclusive and, they should be the only ones collecting. And then you have collecting for everyone. So we have to kind of look at this from a bird's eye view and understand what role to play in this. We could have easily gone in and looked at some of these really famous artists and told them, hey, we want to make an NFT of your work and we want to sell it for a really high price. And this had happened in the previous cycle. It really didn't. It's impressive. It's a great article, but a lot of times it doesn't really do much. In Beeple's case, it did a lot because it introduced the world to Beeple. Beeple had not been selling anything before that. So for an artist that wasn't selling to suddenly sell, that was actually what flipped the switch and what made a cultural change. But an artist that's already selling in millions, to get them to just sell another NFT for a few thousands, I personally feel it's counterproductive. And it has been the exercise of a lot of NFT projects to do this, to zone in on really, really famous artists and try to get them to sell an NFT for a very, very high amount. And I don't want to speak for all of Tezos, but I feel that this is not the culture within the Tezos ecosystem to do things like that. Because when you look at even the big artists, like, for example, we have Ralph Steadman, who is regularly minting his work on the ecosystem, and he sells for a lot of money. But when he decided to put his work on this ecosystem, he made it accessible to everyone. So I can buy a Ralph Steadman piece. Finally, I would never be able to afford it otherwise. But because there are 1,000 editions of that, I could buy a Ralph Steadman for 5 Tezos. But this has not been the approach of a lot of projects that want to look at really famous artists. They want to really sell it for a lot of money. So when it comes to the work that we're doing, we feel that if we're looking at building the ecosystem, building the community, we have to focus more on the ground and more on that kind of work. So while the art markets are growing, which is a great thing, uh, our work is really not too connected to that monetary growth that they are seeing. At some point it'll meet. At some point when the adoption is big enough, it will meet. But we're trying to build the foundation first, instead of coming from the top down approach and trying to do a really big sale really quick and create a lot of hype. We're building the framework so that in the future it can lead to artists starting from the ground up, starting with nothing, and then becoming the next digital superstar artists of India. And I feel that if we, as an ecosystem, are able to give them that entire platform, build their careers up, it'll make much more of an impact than just being the chain that did a financial transaction and sold an NFT of someone who's already really famous. So that's really how I look at it, in terms of the connection between the art markets and the work that we're doing at this point.
We have one startup in our current batch at Phil Arts and Tezos Accelerator that deals with artistic career development. We'll be happy to introduce you, and hopefully that that product could start its activity with helping Indian artists.
Brilliant. That is the main goal of what we're doing. So that'd be great.
Perfect. Another question that we have actually is, how would you describe the current state of digital and crypto art in India? What would be your comment and what is your take on it?
Oh, that's a great question, Sonia. Digital art is so exciting. It is such a vast space because when you look at the demographics of India and you compare to other countries, we have the highest population, I believe, right now. We've overtaken China, but we also have the youngest population. We have an average age of 26, 27, whereas you compare that with the next populated country like China, their average age is 35. So if you look at the brain of a 26-year-old creative person and a 35-year-old creative person, a 26-year-old person would be much more invested in a digital space and more into gaming, more into all of these things that make the digital world so exciting, metaverse, and all of these things that people are still building. We have a long way to go for an actual usable metaverse, I feel. But when we have so many young Indians that are ready to jump into this, I feel that the future of digital art in India is one of the biggest potentials we have, which is why we're trying to build from the ground up, which is why we're trying to build this base for these digital artists to be able to launch their careers through Web3, because these opportunities have not been given to them. Till now, the only platform that has really helped them has been Instagram, and that also has reached its limitations. But here you have the ability of putting your art in high res and really showing your work. So I really feel that betting on the fact that a lot of digital artists are going to come out of India in the next 5 years is the best direction for an arts and culture organization in India right now, because just looking at the numbers, they're going to be staggering. And that being said, when looking at our neighbors as well, when we see how well countries like Indonesia have done and the kind of digital art that's coming out of Indonesia, to me personally has been really, really inspiring, because the quality they've been able to achieve being in Southeast Asia is world class and beyond. They've really set the trend of what digital artists can do. And it comes from the fact that they have a lot of digital art education. They had a lot of infrastructure in place. We did not have so much of that. So um, while we can see their first wave taking shape, we know that the big wave of India digital artists has not taken place yet. So we can play a role in that happening. So it's something really exciting that will be coming out in the future, and it will be very visible when the real first wave of Indian digital art comes to the world.
That's very interesting. And so you touched from the artist perspective. What about like collector's perspective? Do you think that's going to happen soon as well with the rise of like such a big wave of artists as well? What do you think about the state of, are people going to be ready to actually buy digital art in the future?
Yes. So I see the collectors as two types of collectors. One is the traditional collector, that the ones that will go and really spend a lot of money on a really important historical piece. This first type of collectors are going to wait for the first wave of really famous Indian artists. So they're not going to buy stuff right now because there are very few Indian artists that have achieved that level of fame in the digital realm. As the wave progresses, we will see those artists emerge. So, and then we'll see these collectors being activated. But there's a second group of collectors, which is the everyday collector. And this can be anyone. This could be anyone who has been educated about how easy it is to collect an NFT. And most people do not know. And how free it is to collect a Tezos NFT, because you're not dumping your life savings or huge amounts of money into buying a work. You can spend 1 or 2 Tez and just buy something you like they would buy an app perhaps, or something more affordable that the art world has not really promoted till this point of time. The art world has never really talked about low budget stuff, because low budget things do not belong in the art world, and that's how it's been built. So I'm excited to see a new breed of collectors who are just collecting work because they have that ability to buy an NFT. And it'll overlap with people who say buy t-shirts, who buy prints, and that is a lot of people, a lot of young people, who've just had their first job. They're not going to buy a piece of art, but they might buy a print. So I would like to see the same people maybe buy an NFT, and by that time have one of those digital frames on their wall and show the NFT on the wall. So a lot of things have to catch up for things to happen. And one of them is also the hardware catching up. And I have this conversation a lot with friends who are in the hardware tech side, that we really need a very affordable, good NFT display solution. So these are things that we want to also try and accelerate in India, to try and get people, get the hardware out there, so that they can enjoy their work more. Because I have a lot of Tezos NFTs, but I realize that I really can't enjoy them on a daily basis until they're up on my wall, or they're displayed in this physical sense. So as that catches up, and I'm pretty sure as more people start buying, as things get more visible, these display units will come out, because it's not too hard to make. I can see Dennis curious about.
I'm smiling not only because I really enjoyed your answer, but also because we have another startup in our batch, which will which will create the, let's say, the brand new way of experiencing and, let's say, displaying NFT collections. So
Fantastic.
I'll be also happy to introduce them to you. And the rest should work. Should wait till the 27th of April, till our demo day. So Varun, we still have 2 questions left, but 6 minutes, actually 5 minutes.
Okay.
So the questions are, they sound like what's your take on the further development of crypto art in general? Of course, a lot has been said so far, but maybe just a quick summary. And then the second question will be asked by Sonia.
Okay. Well, crypto art in India. So if we talk about art that are on the blockchain, India has seen a lot of success in the Ethereum ecosystem. And there has been presence in the Tezos ecosystem. There has been a little bit of stuff on the Solana ecosystem as well. But outside that, there are a lot of new startups that are developing their own currencies and their own marketplaces and their own metaverses. There are too many actually to list. There are many, many new startups that are building the entire ecosystem themselves. So whether that will pick up or not, I'm really not too sure. I'm always very skeptical. I look at things in a more traditional sense. Even though I'm looking 5 years into the future in the work that we're doing, I don't believe that you can build a metaverse in 6 months, or you can build a successful metaverse in 6 months. So there are amazing projects that are out there. A lot of people are trying to create quick successes within within the crypto ecosystem, whether it's apps or NFT marketplaces and things like that. I feel that the things that will work are the ones that have a solid base. That's very important, because we've seen one cycle already, and we've seen how things can tumble if you don't have a solid base. So I would say the current state is in the building zone. A lot of people are building things. We just have to wait and see how these things that they're building, how they play out in the next year.
Thank you, Varun. Before Sonia asks her last question, I should admit that several minutes ago we were witnessing the first example of product placement during the Fuel Arts webinars. Sonia was using the Christie's bottle. I believe Christie's paid Sonia a fortune to use their branded bottle of water during the Fuel Arts webinars. Great. I mean,
yeah, I'm sorry for such a product placement. Wasn't my intention.
That was funny. That was funny.
But yeah, obviously, like what Varun was saying today about AI, I attended Christie's Arctic Summit last week, and I remember that almost every panel was touching AI at a certain moment. So
Yes.
Everyone was talking about it, and it was interesting because there were people from different sectors, from tech, business, and art as well, and everyone was just describing AI and how it actually can develop and change our lives. So yeah, the final question that we ask our speakers is actually the tips. So we would like to ask you 3 tips for aspiring crypto and digital artists.
Okay. Since I had this question beforehand, thank you. I'm not going to ramble through it. So the first thing I would say is try to find a healthy balance between your Web3 activity and your real world activity as an artist. So if you have activity primarily in the real world, and try to develop some in Web3, and if you're primarily Web3, try to develop some in the real world, because it helps you keep a sane mind to have both worlds to play in, because you never know when something slows down, then you can focus on the other thing will pick up. So a healthy balance between the two. Web3, this space, is the ultimate learning resource. So if you have to take anything from it, just learn. There's so much to learn. It's an entire new world. Learn not just one blockchain, learn about all blockchains. There's good and bad. It doesn't matter which blockchain you're researching into. You will learn something going in and out of it. And learning does not amount to spending any money. Learning is just put the knowledge into your head, use things. There are very easy ways of using the blockchain without having to invest in it. You can do things on things like GhostNet. I'm not going to get into that, but of building stuff and using a separate network which doesn't require any cryptocurrency to build. So use the learning resources. There's so much to learn. And the last thing is, do not get into crypto art or the blockchain for instant gratification. Think about it as a technology that you are learning, just like how you learned how to use your smartphone or harness the internet as an artist. Think about it, learn the technology first, and look 4 5 years into the future and decide where you want to be, and not just enter it to sell a piece of work, because we've seen that is very short term thinking, and will probably end with you being not so impressed by what it has to offer. But if you look at it long term, you will achieve a lot.
Thank you, Varun. Thank you.
If I were an artist, I would have been much inspired, and just were typing Tezos.com to be introduced to the Tezos ecosystem. Right now, right after this inspiring speech, actually, we have a comment from one of the fine artists who is diving now into Web3 and quite successfully. Hi Nanda, we're happy to see you again. Just spoke last week at Mumbai Art Forum on NFTs. It was great to speak.
Fantastic.
Please join the Tezos Art family, Nanda. We're waiting for you. Thank you so much, Varun, for this talk, and we wish you, you and your great initiative, prosperity and further development. And also, we'll be happy to hear your electronic music.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. We had a nice little conversation before the webinar about electronic music, and I didn't get a chance to talk about music and NFTs, but that's definitely something that I'd love to see take a bigger stage this year.
Absolutely. Thank you, Varun, again. Thank you for your time. And it's been an incredible webinar. And for everyone who's listening to us, we'll see you as usual in 1 week for another webinar.
Right. All the countries which are exploring Tezos should take your experiences as an example.
Thank you so much, Dennis. That means a lot. I'm very passionate about what we're doing here, because the work comes from the heart. I really believe in the community and this culture and what we're doing. It's not for me, it's not just a job, but it's a movement that I'm very, very privileged to be part of.
Thank you again, and see you, Varun, and the audience. See you next week.
Dennis. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us. Bye.